Good morning, everybody. Welcome to CTI Subcommittee, Technology and Innovation. This is our first meeting and most likely only meeting. So as you can tell, we have a very busy docket. I'm Delegate Holly Siebold. I'll let everybody go around really quickly and introduce themselves since this is our first meeting, so you know who everybody is. And we'll start at the end with Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cliff Hayes, and I represent the 91st District, which is the northern end of Chesapeake, and also a small portion of Portsmouth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Delegate Karen Keys-Gamara, representing House District 7, which is in Fairfax County, including most of Reston, parts of Oakton, and parts of Herndon.
Good morning. I am Delegate Rosia A. Henson Jr., representing House District 19, Fairfax and Prince William County, Route 1 corridor. So that's Fort Belvoir, Woodlawn, Lorton, and Woodbridge.
Delegate Nick Freitas, representing the 62nd District, which is parts of Culpeper, Orange, and all of Madison and Greene counties.
Good morning. Mark Early, represent the western part of Chesterfield County, the 73rd District. Thank you all for being here.
Great, thank you. And again, I'm Delegate Holly Siebold. I represent the 12th District, which is northern Fairfax County, the Tysons, Vienna areas. So as you see, we have some members who are with us today, and some who have to leave early, and some who are in other committees right now. It's a very busy morning, so we're going to go ahead and start. We do have a quorum. We may have to go at ease if that quorum changes. So let's go ahead and start with Delegate Helmer.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. In front of you is House Bill 1796, the Virginia Decentralized Autonomous Organization Act. A decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, as we'll call it from now on, is an organization whose activities are facilitated by a blockchain, which is a public ledger of transactions maintained digitally. DAOs exist for a variety of purposes, including administration of a decentralized platform, exchange or application, philanthropic causes and funds for projects, social purposes for communities of specific interest, and opportunities for pooled investments. They've existed in some form since the early 2010s and are recognized in a number of states. We've worked on HB 1796 with multiple stakeholders, which provides a recognition for the legal existence of DAOs, not just simply having them as unregistered entities in Virginia, which builds on a 2023 SEC study and previous bill. The legal recognition of DAOs moves these entities into Virginia law and enables a formal framework to ensure effective and fair governance and support regulation and protections for those who participate in or form DAOs. In the 2023 study, concern was raised about establishing DAOs as a type of limited liability corporation and the potential impacts on Virginia's existing LLC framework. After consultation with multiple stakeholders, Madam Chair, actually, there is a substitute. Could we, if someone would be willing to move that? Very important.
Great, can we go ahead and do that? Okay, by voice vote. Okay, all that agree, please say aye.
All right, Madam Chair, the substitute. Oh, is it? Okay, Madam Chair, the substitute the substitute in front of you addresses those concerns by making sure we're explicit that this does not impact existing LLC law and making sure that DAOs are a legally distinct entity that is not an LLC. At the request of the SEC, we have also amended the bill with the delayed enactment to July 2026 to ensure appropriate time for changing their systems to enable registration of DAOs. Passage of this bill ensures that Virginia will be a leader in attracting cutting-edge digital companies and philanthropic interests, and I hope the subcommittee will support the bill.
Great, thank you, Delegate Helmer. Do we have any questions by the members of the subcommittee? Go ahead, Delegate Keys-Gamara.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the patron to explain the provisions, I think we discussed it right before, regarding the P.O. Box and how that operates and whether parties interacting with this organization will be able to have a physical address.
Madam Chair, I'll defer to the attorney. I think what you're referring to is in line 104. it says that the post office address, including the street and number of any of the DAO, registrar's office, et cetera, it actually lists what you'll do. My understanding is that when we say post office address there, it means the address recognized by the post office, not a P.O. box. But if that's incorrect, I would accept it as a friendly amendment to clarify that just like an LLC, you need a physical address. So this is line 104.
Mr. Chair, is there a question about that line?
So the question is, I think what Delegate Keys-Gamarra was asking is post office address is referred to there. Would that also include a post office box, or is that simply reflect the address, the physical address recognized by the U.S. Postal Service? And if that's the question.
Mr. Chair, or Madam Chair, I apologize, Delegate Helmer. I think that would include a P.O. box. I'm going to just double check just to be sure, but I think that would include. And then I would add, I'm not sure if this is in line with Delegate Keys-Gamarra her question, but in the substitute there was also language added that the articles of organization for the DAO will designate an operator of record that may be a person or an entity, so that there is someone for people to interact with it as well. I'm not sure if that's also in line with the question, but just to point it out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That does address my concern. Is and your language, the language addressed it. I don't want to have an entity in Virginia operating where people can't find anything other than a P.O. box. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions from the committee?
So,
Delegate Freitas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, maybe for the patron, maybe for council. If someone are we in a situation right now in Virginia where somebody operating kind of along these lines is just not legally permitted to operate, or we just don't have a new regulatory framework to govern it?
Madam Chair, I'd answer the delegate that there are many of these entities operating right now. There are 13,000 entities across the United, more than 13,000 at the time of the study in 2023. It's larger now. So they may legally operate, but they aren't afforded any of the legal protections that exist for somebody who forms a legal liability corporation. There is huge questions about where things sit in securities law, business registration. So so the answer is yes, they do. And then when things go wrong, as they inevitably do, it's not really clear how to operate within that framework. And so this just adjusts this and brings it under the purview of the SEC. And someone have to choose to, the last piece, someone have to choose to register the DAO in Virginia in order for our SEC and everything to govern the entity as a whole.
Great. Delegate Chairman Hayes.
thank you so much, Madam Chair. To the sponsor of the bill, Delegate Helmer, to your knowledge, what are we doing now in the Commonwealth when these organizations or people are trying to establish themselves now without any type of regulatory framework in the Commonwealth?
Madam Chair, I'd answer the chairman that we don't have an existing framework, which puts us into a lot of different pathways. So the legal landscape is unclear, and given the importance that these entities currently play in the growth of digital technologies in the United States and our desire to, as that continues to grow, make sure we are creating jobs in Virginia, we need a framework because it is unclear at this moment where all of that sits.
What does that do? I'm sorry, follow up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So what does that do to Virginians when we don't have a framework itself? I don't want to, what does that do?
Madam Chair, I'd answer the chair that what this does is that means that it is not clear where you go to for consumer protections. It is not clear where you go to if you want to register one of these entities. It leaves you without the legal protections and the framework of the SEC that we've built exactly for these purposes everywhere else. So not having an established mechanism makes it much more difficult to know what the rules of the road are, and therefore leaves people at risk.
Go ahead.
At the appropriate time, I have a motion. at the appropriate time.
Great, thank you. Excuse me. Let's give the audience a chance to speak. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the bill?
I know we have some folks online, too.
Any in support? Yes. Okay.
How you doing? My name is George Munden. Excuse me.
Sorry, we're going to set the clock at 1 minute just so we have enough time for everybody to speak. Thank you. Go ahead.
Minutes time.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is George Munden. I'm with the Virginia Blockchain Council, and we are in support of this bill. We think it's important for the state in general, but we think there's a lot of underserved communities that could use this. We think the framework is important, just regulatory-wise, just so people can have a structure and understand accountability as well. And we think the state wants to lead in innovation, and we're in support of that, and we think it's going to be a good thing, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody here in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Eric Link speaking on behalf of the Virginia Bar Association. We want to thank Delegate Helmer for talking with us. He's been very, very available and amenable to discussions about the bill. We do still oppose it. A lot of what we've been talking about, a regulatory framework, I would actually ask the subcommittee to look at that from the other side. If the subcommittee votes to adopt this bill, what they're doing is voting to adopt and legitimize DAOs using Virginia's well-earned reputation as a friendly place for business and putting that on the line. There are other states that have taken similar steps to legitimize DAOs, yet the fraud persists. So I think our main concern is Virginia has a very, very well-earned reputation as a friendly place for business that has mature regulations. I think that the subcommittee ought to think twice before putting that on the line on an entity, or pardon me, a business entity that still attracts a great deal of fraud across the country and across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it looks like we have one person online to speak in favor of the bill as well. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Erlinda Doherty. As a public policy and industry expert, I would like to express my support for HB 1796 as it demonstrates the Commonwealth's leadership in implementing a foundational framework for one of the most innovative democratic ways for citizens to organize, interact, and conduct business. A DAO is an entity that operates on a blockchain using smart contracts and token-based governance to enable participants to make decisions and contribute to its activities without essential authority. Instead of having a centralized management team, DAOs rely on their own members to vote on proposals and collectively make decisions to drive the organization toward a commonly agreed goal or purpose. DAOs begin with like-minded individuals sharing a common goal and a vision for their organization. Its members collectively make decisions alongside its founders and developers. And DAOs are community-led entities governed by code and smart contracts with no central authority or intermediary. Democratic organizations to the core. I applaud the chairwoman for giving us this time to express our views on this landmark bill and applaud Delegate Helmer for sponsoring this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Thank you very much. All right, so we have another question here on the from the committee. Mr. Link, if you don't mind coming back, we have a question for the bar.
Madam Chair, I wanted to ask our witness here, I don't know what else to call you other than the Virginia.
Victim, maybe?
We'll find out. I just wanted to, he stated that that there were other states that have put structures in place and they are still experiencing fraud. Did the bar have any suggestions on how that fraud might be addressed, or is it better just to leave it unaddressed?
There's a paradox there. We have not
Perhaps.
We have not been able to suggest a substantial anti-fraud measure. I have asked our members for that, and I'm still waiting for a response.
All right, great. Delegate Friedis.
Madam Chair, before you sit down.
Oh, come back.
It's only a Madam Chair question. think it's only fair our side also grills you.
Please.
So is it the current position of the bar that they don't even want these sorts of entities to be able to legally exist?
It's the position of the bar that there's a balance to be struck between the existence of these legal entities in Virginia and the business environment that Virginia has cultivated over decades.
Madam Chair, follow up? Okay. Okay, get that. But I'm trying to ascertain why you think one impacts the other. What is it about this specific entity, which is already operating in some capacity, but now that there's going to be a legal framework for, what is it about establishing some sort of legal framework that allows these things to exist with more transparency that you don't like, or that you think negatively impacts our positive business reputation?
As I was, Delegate Freitas, as I was testifying before, Virginia has a very mature business landscape, very mature regulatory landscape, generally cited as one of the best states in the country to do business in. That didn't happen overnight. And the bar's concern is that when you take on an entity like this that does have a lot of fraud associated with it, you might be eating into basically the goodwill or the credibility of the environment that we have here, possibly making Virginia slightly less attractive for business down the road. This entity, I'm not arguing about the legitimacy of this entity. I guess if I was going to be a little more direct, I would say let's give it a little longer to develop on the dime of other states, so to speak, before we embrace it fully.
All right, great. Chairman Hayes? Chairman Hayes, you have a question?
I'm sorry. Sorry, question, if I could, of the gentleman that...
Still coming back. Don't sit down. Just a joke.
Return back, please, Mr. Link.
So if I could, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask you a question in reference to the fraud question.
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair to say that there's some problems, fraud,
mm-hmm.
Threat of fraud,
mm-hmm.
of sole proprietorships?
I think the difference between a DAO and every other established business entity is the decentralized part of the DAO. You could establish a DAO in Virginia, and you can have a registered agent in Virginia, you can have an address in Virginia. Not a single person that's associated with the DAO needs to be physically present in Virginia. Typically speaking, with every other choice of entity, there is some kind of a physical presence for the business in Virginia. And that's one of the aspects that makes DAOs attractive for fraud, because there is no requirement for a physical presence other than the two that are in the bill. Whereas with a brick and mortar business, that even if you're talking about a technology company, they've got servers here. I mean, there's some kind of tangible physical presence. A DAO doesn't have that.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So to speak to servers being here, mm-hmm. there are partnerships, LLCs, et cetera, that may not have a presence with regards to their data here in the Commonwealth that operate outside. So the quick answer, the short answer to my question about sole proprietorships and fraud, does it exist?
Fraud exists everywhere, Delegate Hayes.
So, follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Are there instances or opportunities or chances for fraud with partnerships?
Fraud exists everywhere, Delegate Hayes.
So, Madam Chair, follow up.
Go ahead.
Are there instances of fraud, threats of fraud, chances of fraud with S-corps?
Delegate Hayes, fraud exists everywhere.
So to that point, mm-hmm. Madam Chair, I think if I might, at the appropriate time, have a motion.
I think this is appropriate time.
And Madam Chair, members, just know that there's a landscape in which these entities are operating already. Mm-hmm. And we need to, I believe, be prepared to deal with that landscape that exists. When it comes to making sure that not only top-down type of authority happens with organizations, that with these new entities, that we're able in the Commonwealth to absorb and deal with this new landscape. If we can think of the introduction of the internet, right, and the excitement that soon followed, that we could post something one way online, and then moving to a space of Web 2.0 where you could have that two-way communication. We're now in a space dealing with many-to-many. And I believe that we need to be in a posture that we begin to regulate and deal with these entities in the Commonwealth in a way that's going to be productive for our citizens and have regulatory framework in which they can operate. The JCOTS, Joint Commission on Technology and Science, has a standing committee that will be dealing with and studying various aspects of it. This is just the beginning. And if we wait, continue to wait, and stand back on our heels, we're going to find ourselves many years from now wishing that we had begun the development of such a structure. With that being said, Madam Chair, I move the passage that we report HB 1796.
Okay.
As a substitute.
Substitute. And we need to, I believe we need to refer it to appropriations as well.
I'm sorry?
He said that. He said that.
You wrote this one. Oh, okay.
What was that?
Okay, it needs to be referred to Labor and Commerce.
No, my motion is just a report. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right.
So do you want to amend your motion?
So I amend my motion, Madam Speaker. I move that we report and refer to Labor and Commerce.
Second. All right. So it has been motioned to report to Labor and Commerce and seconded. The members will record their vote on the electric voting system. Clerk will close the roll. The bill report 7-0. Thank you, Delegate Hilmer.
Thank you very much, members of the subcommittee.
It's okay. It's okay. Welcome, Delegate Maldonado. You have two bills in front of us today. Which one would you like to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am here to first discuss HB 2121. And there is a substitute.
Okay.
Move to substitute.
Okay. All who agree, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Substitute is it passed?
And Madam Chair, I'll just say that the substitute should post on LIS. It may take a minute or two, but they should pop up on LIS shortly.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, go ahead, Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill helps us address, I think, what many of us have been struggling with around content transparency and authenticity. So all we're doing here is asking that we look at what's called content provenance. That means the history of the content. If a piece of content, and we probably have all seen this, shows up on a platform, say Instagram, and it's been generated by AI, so it is a deepfake. And what I will say first and foremost is not all deepfakes are bad. Some are for entertainment, some are for educational purposes. But what is happening as it moves from platform to platform to platform, it is unclear to a user if it is accurate information. So this bill encourages what's called one, transparency and labeling, and two, inter-platform operability. The first part says, if I create this content on a platform and I choose the tool that says, hey, this was generated this way, it gives the history of the content. But then someone takes that content, perhaps the creator or someone else, and moves it from IG to, say, Blue Sky or X. Sometimes those platforms will strip out the notifications. So the users in other platforms won't know that it's the kind of information that it is. So it goes directly to transparency of information. It also encourages the development of tools in these platforms so that people can select when they're creating their content that it is made in a certain way. We have one thing, we did get a request last night to provide some language, and it is in the substitute, to make it clear that we are not talking about video games. I think the language isn't quite right in that line, and we're going to work with the stakeholder to refine that, but that was our attempt when they expressed their request. There is no private right of action, as with many of the AI and related bills coming forward this session. It does rest with the Attorney General, similarly tracking to the other pieces of legislation coming forward. I think I'll pause there. Again, I think part of what we're having as a challenge is what is happening with our data, how we're sharing it, and just empowering people to understand the nature of the content that's before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you have any questions from those on the committee? All right, let's go ahead first then and call up the audience. Anybody here who wants to speak in support of 2021, come on up.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm Chris White with the Vector Corporation. I represent Adobe. Nick Gatz from Adobe is here online, and he'll provide the bulk of the testimony, but I just wanted to say that we think this is a very common sense, great first step to provide some transparency on what folks are seeing on the internet. I know some of the social media platforms might be somewhat concerned. I think the one reason or something I'd like to point out is that this bill is not prescriptive about how a content credential is kept. If somebody wants to put the little credential up in the left-hand corner or the right-hand corner, there's a lot of flexibility in there to allow them to do that. I yield the rest of my time to Mr. Gatz.
We're going to wait and do online after we have everybody who's in person, who have been able to speak. Anybody here who opposes the bill want to come up and speak? All right, so let's move then on to online. We'll start with those who support, and I have and so those who are in favor of the bill, go ahead and speak first. Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Gatz. Oh, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
My name is... Can you hear?
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
You hear me now? Okay. Gotcha. Well, thank you, Delegate Siebel, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Nick Gatz. I work on Adobe's policy and government relations team. I'm here today to support HB 2021 as it aligns with Adobe's commitment to transparency and authenticity in digital content. Also, just want to add quickly, Adobe, we have over 100 employees here in Virginia, mostly in McLean, that work on our public sector business with governments across the country. And so to address this issue of AAI generated deepfakes, we helped found an initiative several years ago called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which is focused on providing digital content provenance, like a nutrition label for content that helps consumers trust what they see online. So this initiative now is over 4,000 members, and the content credential standard has been adopted by organizations like the Department of Defense, Google, Microsoft, Leica, LinkedIn, and many, many others. So we support HB 2021's provision on retaining provenance data that a user uploads to a service and then displaying that information so that a consumer knows that it's there, so this information is available to them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gates. I also have someone from the Transparency Coalition who wants to speak in support. You can go ahead and speak. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody, for the time. My name is Jay Jessama. I'm testifying in support of Virginia HB 2121. I'm a co-founder of Transparency Coalition, a Seattle-based nonprofit which advocates for increased transparency. We're very supportive of 2121 because we think it'll bring much-needed transparency in generative AI outputs, where consumers most often can't tell if a particular piece of content is AI generated or not. We supported a similar bill in California called SB 942, which was also enacted into law. And there are similar bills making their way in other state legislatures around the country. They're not heavy-handed requirements. As a matter of fact, as Mr. Gatz mentioned, there is a C2PA organization which was started by Adobe, but there's also Meta and OpenAI have already begun the integration of this standard into their products. This is not a detection tool that attempts to guess what is generated, nor does it rely on watermarking, both of which we commend because they're not prescriptive. I urge the committee to pass them and send it to the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then I have someone to speak against the bill from TechNet. You can go ahead and speak. You have 1 minute.
Good morning, Chair Siebold and members of the subcommittee. My name is Margaret Durkin, and I am here on behalf of TechNet, a technology trade association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on House Bill 2121. TechNet is concerned about this bill as we read it as being overly broad, and we are concerned about some of the definitions in the bill. We believe that it's premature in its technical feasibility, and while the industry is close to establishing this technology at scale for images, there really aren't any capabilities developed yet for audio and video. We believe that the bill provides for steep violations, and while there is an opportunity to cure in the bill, it is at the AG's discretion and determination. We would ask that the subcommittee or full committee recommend this bill to JCOTS for a study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have anybody on the committee who would like to say something? Delegate Freitas?
Yeah, I have a question, and theoretically, I don't know if we're taking questions from people in the online testimony, but as I understand it, what the industry is required to do at this point is to not proactively remove something. What I'm unclear of, and this is, so and the reason why I specify that is because it would be one thing if we were requiring the industry to go on and put something on there every time an image comes across or every time it changes. But from what I understand, all that's required of the industry at this particular time is don't remove any of the information which kind of shows the history. What is the probability that things just get, lost in transfers and whatnot, like honest mistakes versus a company proactively removing something?
Delegate Maldonado,
yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would say to the delegate that right now it is very easy to take data and information from one platform to another. They can use what's called an API, an applicable programming interface, and that can port over all of the content. So what happens now is that in many times when that data is already there, the receiving platform strips out that identifying information. And all we're saying is we would like for the platforms to be interoperable so that information that is most helpful and valuable to users isn't stripped out when it moves around the internet space. It is not something that's difficult to do. APIs have existed forever, and it's very easy.
Thank you, Delegate Maldonado. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, Delegate Iskamara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Maldonado, thank you for bringing this bill. Excuse me. And I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I mean, as a writer, it reminds me of a footnote, right? So we know where the research comes from, at least where something came from, the background. So But there's also been, the JCOTS has been trying to look at these things, and I'm wondering if you've had any conversation with them.
No, I think just like the Dow bill we heard right before us, there was no discussion of something like that that is brand new to Virginia, just like this is. And I think this one is actually simpler in nature because companies already have the capability to do this, and several already are. So all we're asking is for consistency across industry.
Yep. I'll do a follow-up, Madam Chair. I just really like the bill, so thanks.
Thank you, Delegate Maldonado. Committee operates on motion. Do we have a motion for this bill?
Madam Chair, I move that we lay this bill gently on the table with a letter to JCOTS asking for further study on the matter.
Second.
Okay, motion is out there and has been seconded. Let's go ahead and pull up the voting.
Madam Chair, very briefly, speaking of the bill, or speaking of the motion. Oh, is it lay on the table? Oh, I thought it was
It's
carryover.
not debatable then. Okay, let's go ahead and vote, please. All right, clerk will close the roll. The bill reports is tabled, but is sent with a letter to JCOTS 8-0. Thank you, Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is 2124. This is just simply a bill that was brought forward last session. My Senate companion did not make it through the Senate, and once we did crossover, there was support for the bill. It passed the House. However, as they have a standard rule that they don't treat a House bill more favorably than its Senate bill. So they asked me to bring it back this year. Senator Eben is carrying the cognate, and it simply creates enhanced penalties when crimes of fraud, libel, slander, and defamation are committed using synthetic media deepfakes. It's very simple. The thing that is new is it asks the Attorney General to create sort of more clarity around creating a work study of a working group to understand pieces across the code where we need to look at the laws around this. And so coming up with recommendations. So that work group would include a member of JCOT and other officials working in this space so we can figure out how to get the penalty phases of this right.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? All right, let's go to the audience. Anybody would like to speak in support of the bill? Anyone would like to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay, do we have anybody online? We should have somebody. Okay, they're not on there. All right, so that means we come back to the committee. Any questions over here? Any thoughts? Okay, Chairman Hayes.
At the appropriate time, I have a motion, Madam
Okay.
Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I just wanted to remind us that this bill is very similar to a bill that went through the House last session, 98-0. And so we've heard this in the past, and I just want to, at this time, move that we report the bill.
Second.
All right. The motion is to report. It's been seconded. Let's go open up and let's open up the rolls. All right, great. Your bill report 7-1.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the
Very much. At this time, we're going to go at ease. All right, welcome back to Technology and Innovation Subcommittee. Delegate Campbell, she was just here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you mind if I present from here? That way I can see all the opposition right in the eyes as they come up.
It's up to you, wherever makes you happy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 2591 is what I anticipate is going to be the start of a very necessary conversation. Obviously, Virginia plays an incredibly large role with respect to data centers, electronic financial transactions, all of that. A significant portion, one might even say a majority of those transactions flow through Virginia in some way, shape, or form, and we're only expanding our data centers within the Commonwealth. The problem that we have right now is that for years, as we were rapidly expanding these sorts of this industry, much of it was utilizing technology from countries which are now, or countries and companies which are highly adversarial to the United States. We've seen this illustrated with companies like Wewa, which was actually ordered to be removed from many of our data centers and other government institutions. The problem that we have right now is because this integration has been so comprehensive over the last several decades, it's not that our adversaries have to hack us, they're already there. And so the ability for them to significantly disrupt U.S. telecommunications in a way that could be incredibly damaging already exists. By the same token, we also recognize that much of our infrastructure is currently relying on this, and so what is the best way that we can go forward in order to try to address this problem? Untangling it is going to be something that's going to require a lot of time and energy, because even when we've done this with certain companies, it's taken years and we're still not complete with completely disentangling it. So what this bill seeks to do is a couple of things. One, it defines the sort of technology that would no longer be permissible for both the Commonwealth of Virginia and private industry operating within the Commonwealth of Virginia to purchase, implement, or utilize. The other thing it does is it provides exceptions that would be necessary at times. It also makes sure that this is implementation going forward. So it's not something that we're saying everybody has to rip out everything that currently exists, all the existing infrastructure, but going forward, we're going to utilize various lists that are operated by the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Federal Communications Commission, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in order to determine what those adversarial companies or countries are, the sort of technology that cannot be implemented as a result. And with the CIO, Chief Information Officer of the Virginia Information Technologies Agency, given authority to implement the various policies that we need in order to achieve this. So I realize that this is a big ask. By the same token, I think if we don't start being a little bit more careful about what technology has led into our larger telecommunication infrastructure, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So with that, I think we might have somebody online to testify, but if not, I'm willing to take, nobody, okay, then be happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Delegate Fries. Anybody from the committee wish to speak at this time? All right, anybody support the bill in the audience would like to come up and speak? Anybody who opposes the bill would like to come up and speak?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, good to see you all again. Eric Link speaking this time on behalf of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. Spoke with Delegate Freitas prior to the subcommittee meeting. We have some concerns about the workability of this bill. I'd be happy to go into detail if the subcommittee likes, but I think that putting VITA in the position of calling balls and strikes on things like whether something is designed, developed, or manufactured in a particular country is challenging. I also think that there's a challenge here, like what if my company lands on the list by mistake? how do I get off there? There's no recourse identified in the bill. There are other concerns with implementation that we have, but I don't want to trespass any longer in the subcommittee's time than I already have.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing that we have nobody online, any last questions from the committee? All right, well, committee operates on motion.
Motion to table.
All right, the motion is to table. It's been seconded. Members will record their vote on the electric voting system. All right, close the roll, please. The motion is to be tabled 5-4. The bill. Thank you, Delegate Freitas. Okay, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. I do have an amendment.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and tell us about the amendment?
Yes, that would begin on line 19. We would enter the word socially after the word interact. So that would read, primarily serves as a medium for users to interact socially with content generated by the users of such medium. Excuse me. I'm really struggling with my tickle this morning. I apologize.
Move the substitute. Second.
Okay.
I just want amendment. I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Noes. All right. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we have HB 1816 in front of us, which provides that social media sites or apps must seek parents' permission to allow a minor to access their social media account at nighttime. This bill is similar to how our state permits our localities to regulate curfews, set limits on minor work hours. It establishes an online curfew without a parent's permission between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Our Surgeon General has weighed in on this as well. I think we are aware, but I'm going to read a few things to you from the Surgeon General. A recent study of 14-year-olds revealed that increased social media usage was linked to negative outcomes, including poor sleep, online harassment, body image issues, low self-esteem, and a very high rate of depressive symptoms. This is more profound in girls than boys. Quality sleep is crucial for the healthy development of our adolescents. A systematic review of 42 different studies by the Surgeon General examining the impact of excessive social media usage consistently identified the connection between social media use and, again, issues such as poor sleep quality, reduced sleep duration, sleep difficulties, and depression among youth. Insufficient sleep, again, according to the Surgeon General, has been associated with altered neurological development in adolescent brains, depressive symptoms, and suicidal thoughts and tendencies. We could go on and on and on. The Surgeon General goes on to say that usage of social media for 3 hours a day for our youth has doubled the risk of poor mental health outcomes, again, including depression and anxiety. 8th and 10th graders, on average, are spending 3.5 hours a day on social media. 25% are spending more than 5 hours a day, and 14% are spending more than 7 hours a day. This is how it would work. Our social media platforms would be required to prohibit minors from accessing those accounts between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m., when they should be sleeping, unless the parent gives them permission to do so. The entity that violates these rules could face a civil liability for the damages caused by allowing the minor to access social media between those hours. This could include damages related to the interference with their sleep cycle and their mental health issues, and as well, they would be responsible for any attorney fees and, cost. This does not impose any obligation or liability on the internet company or users of the social media site. It simply asks the social media company to comply with the law. There have been some that have expressed some concerns about our First Amendment. I'd like to quote something from Nadine Strossen. She was the former head of the ACLU. She emphasizes that the First Amendment free speech guarantee, like all other constitutional rights, protects individuals only from government actions, not from the regulation of how the entities such as social media platforms interact with their users. I will just wrap this up because we've heard this before, but we've all talked about this. I've talked with many of you. I know we've talked with our constituents, our friends, and our family. And everything that we come back to, the consensus is we need to do something. I would say to you, Madam Chair, now is our chance. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Delegate Campbell. Delegate Campbell, just very quickly, we saw this bill last year. I want to give you a chance. If there are any changes that have been made since last year, would you let us know about those changes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The change that we made was with the amendment that I shared with you. And we did this to narrow the scope so that we are not targeting, platforms, where people can do online shopping, where you can scroll, but we're really looking at trying to narrow down this focus to make sure that we're talking about platforms where our young people have the opportunity to interact. And that's where a lot of our cyberbullying is taking place. We're not saying that they can't do it. We're simply saying, if you as a parent think that your young person needs to be limited during the time that they should be sleeping, that you have that opportunity.
Thank you, Delegate Campbell. A question from the committee, Delegate Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if DLS could report what that change was in that amendment. I don't have my laptop.
Yes, Madam Chair. The amendment was on line 19. After the word interact, it inserted the word socially. So in that clause 3 of the definition of social media account, that clause would now read primarily serves as a medium for users to interact socially with content generated by other users of such medium.
Thank you.
Delegate Keys-Gamarra.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask the patron, and first of all, I'll make a comment. I don't think anybody's doubting the harm that you described. I think the complication is, how do we implement this? How do we distinguish here in this committee, focusing on technology and communications, how do we monitor social interaction? Who makes those decisions? How do we, how would a provider be the one to do that? I just see tremendous implementation problems.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate the question. I would say that we do have organizations. Meta, for example, is already doing this, and they do have. These companies are brilliant. They know how to implement this. They can do it now. They know they can do it now. Many of them already require parental consent, but there are some that don't, and the ability is there.
Go ahead.
Where is the language that puts the burden on the parent to implement something?
The burden would actually be on the company, that they would make sure that the parental consent is there for the minor. So again, we're giving parents the opportunity to do this. We're not saying that they have to. If they feel like that their young person doesn't need this regulation, they don't have to do it, but it gives, the burden becomes on the company, that they have to make sure that they are looking at who their users are, and are they underage? And if they are, they should have parental consent.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Campbell. Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to the bill,
Go ahead.
As the patron stated, Instagram and Meta, they already have these parental guidelines, and I'm looking on my phone, of course, where they limit the amount of time the teen spends on the app, schedule breaks, which accounts the teen can follow, adjust their teen's privacy settings, control who can message your teen. So a lot of these applications already have this in place, so I'm not seeing the need right now for your bill today. And even more to that end, because I have a helicopter mom and she's probably watching this today, they installed applications on phones where they can track what I was doing on my phone. I thought I was good having a VPN, and she can see that as well. So I do believe that there's other parameters out there to make sure parents can see what their teen is doing. I was very slick at a lot of things, but I wasn't slick at everything. So that's just my comment on the bill.
Thank you, Delegate. Any other questions from the committee? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and take comments from the audience. Okay. All right. Come on forward, please, if you would like to speak in support of the bill.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm Dr. Alexis Zaplaska, pediatrician, child psychiatrist, and the Chief Medical Officer for the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health. It is recommended that teens sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, and regularly sleeping fewer than this, as Delegate Campbell mentioned, is associated with attention and learning problems, increases the risk of accidents, obesity, depression, increases risk of self-harm and suicide. Late night scrolling on social media has impacts on sleep in many ways, and more so in adolescence. The addictive feed leads to delayed sleep onset. The content can lead to stress and anxiety, making it hard to fall asleep. And the blue light of those electronic screens interferes with sleep patterns, including deep sleep, which is a critical time that adolescents are consolidating memories and learning. Promoting health in kids has always been through layered prevention strategies, and so restricting late night hours in minors is simply one layer of protection and prevention that supports parents and helps teens in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else in support of the bill? All right. Anybody in opposition to the bill? You're very busy this morning, Mr. Link.
No. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Eric Link speaking on behalf of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. The Northern Virginia Technology Council takes no position on the substance of the bill. We have questions about the implementation, similar to what Delegate Keys-Gamarra asked from the dais, and we oppose the bill.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Andrew Lamar on behalf of the Richmond Technology Council. Similar to his comments, just on implementation, I'll just add, I have a daughter with a tablet, and with any type of application, I generally, within the tablet, manage her hour restrictions or time usage right there. So just appreciate your consideration of those things. Thank you very much.
All right, looks like we have someone online who would like to speak. Go ahead, Ms. Durkin.
Good morning again, Chair Siebold and members of the sub. Again, my name is Margaret Durkin, and I'm with TechNet. I am here to speak today in opposition to House Bill 1816. We agree that children deserve a heightened sense of security while online. However, we are concerned that this bill takes a one-size-fits-all approach and doesn't account for the development of a child. Parental controls are appropriate in some instances, and a lot of controls exist already on the device level, as mentioned previously, and we think that these additional requirements would perhaps confuse parents. We also believe that children and teens, to the extent, deserve their own right to privacy, and that some children are not in the most accepting environments in their home, and that these restricted hours might be the safest time for them to get on the internet to seek out resources they may need. For these reasons, we are opposed to 1816 and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody left on the committee who would like to say something before we take a vote? Okay, I'll just say one thing, because I have two teens at home, and Delegate Campbell, I agree with a lot of your sentiment. We definitely need to make sure we're always at all times protecting our children. I have the same issue I had last year, which is basically I already have apps on my kids' devices, third-party apps that we use to oversee and track their usage. So I just don't necessarily see a need for this, but I definitely agree with your where your heart is with this particular bill. So with that being said,
Madam Chair, may I have one more word? No, you're totally done. Thank you. I would just like to say I really appreciate the thoughtful position of the committee. I know this is an issue that we all take very seriously, and I too have had all the safeguards and things on the devices. but the evidence is clear what we're doing is not enough. It's not working. And so I would just ask everyone to keep that in their mind as they make this decision.
Thank you, Delegate Campbell.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I move to gently, like a feather, ever so slightly, to table this bill. Second.
All right, with that, motion's been made and seconded. Let's open up the electronic voting system. Okay, please, clerk, please close the roll. The bill is tabled 6-4. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
All right, Delegate Glass. Thank you very much. Oh, they're all leaving. Now we have enough people. Morning, Delegate Glass.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Ready for me to go? I was just responding to somebody said, where you at to present your bill? And I'm in committee, so we're working it this morning. So gratitude for your all time this morning. I am presenting House Bill 2411. I have an amendment on that bill, which most of you should have gotten, strikes the word artificial intelligence.
Move the amendment. Second.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Gratitude.
Oh, sorry, voice vote. Do we all?
Yes.
In favor? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Any no's? All right. Go ahead, Delegate Glass.
Gratitude, Madam Chair. So this is simply a one-line bill. I will start by saying $94 million. $94 million is the amount of money that folks over the age of 60 were scammed out of in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2023. That was a $34 million increase from 2022. What it did was put Virginia in the top 10 of states for elder scam. So this is according to the FBI. And really the precipice of this bill was really in my neighborhood having to deal with the numerous cases of some of our senior citizens not knowing that a scam was apparent. I knew that it was happening, like, there's got to be a way. And the thought process is if I can get a weather alert, I should be able to get an alert that there's a widespread scam happening. The unfortunate part of these scams that are happening nowadays is that they are more sophisticated and they're happening very quickly. You're not getting, there's a significant increase in marriage scams or, just take your money from you scams. It's most commonly reported where folks are downloading software direct to the victim and taking from them. So that's what this bill does, is establishes within our already present consumer protections portion of the Attorney General's office an alert system where if a scam raises to the level where we've seen a significant increase of folks, and that's for them to determine that there is an alert saying this is on the rise. So hopefully that we be in a place of preventative measures rather than retroactive.
Thank you, Delegate Glass. Questions from the committee? Delegate Henson?
Not a question, just a statement to the patron. Thank you for bringing this bill. I think we heard something similar last year with Maldonado, and she was trying to enhance the most vulnerable community from being scammed. And I would say it's timely because yesterday 12 News reported that the Easy Pass scam was happening, and people were clicking a link to pay their Easy Pass toll violation, but in all reality, they were being scammed out of their personal information. And then you even have some folks who think they're paying a hospital bill or receiving some type of package from Amazon and it says, hey, please verify your address. And the whole time they're stealing their PII. So I just want to thank you for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, with that being said, let's turn it over to the audience. Anybody who would like to come up and speak in support, you can do so now. Anybody who would like to oppose the bill can do so now. Do we have anybody online? Nobody. Okay. All right. Final word, Delegate Glass.
I'm just grateful to the sheriff's offices and the news folks that are trying to get these things out there, and I'm hopeful that we can do better as a Commonwealth to keep money in folks' pockets.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Glass, for bringing this bill.
Madam Chair, I have a motion when appropriate.
This is a good time. Go ahead.
Move to report.
Second.
All right, great. So the motion is to report. It has been seconded. Let's go ahead and open the electronic rolls.
With amendment.
With the amendment. All right, let's close the rolls. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? All right. The bill with the amendment reports 7-1.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. All right, we have Delegate Henson. Would you like to report from here or would you like to go to the podium?
I can do here because I know what's going to happen.
Carolyn.
With my bill, I have discernment, and it was somewhat similar to Delegate Maldonado. So, I would like to sit for this lovely funeral.
Delegate Henson. Go.
But it will be revived, hopefully, there is a resurrection. So, Madam Chair, member of the committee, House Bill 2554, Artificial Intelligence Transparency Act, requires developers of generative AI systems in Virginia to ensure any audio, image, text, or video content made by such AI system to include a clear and conspicuous disclosure indicating that the content is AI generated. House Bill 2554 also requires developers to implement reasonable procedures to prevent downstream use of such systems without the required disclosures and requires any third-party licensee of the generative AI system to also implement such procedures. This bill provides that a violation of the disclosure requirement constitutes prohibited practices under the Virginia Consumer Protection Act. This bill also allows the Attorney General to offer developers a right to cure noncompliance and provides that a person or entity claiming to be injured due to a violation of the disclosure requirements shall be entitled to file an action for monetary damages or equitable relief. So, Madam Chair, I would just say that, we are moving into a year where AI is already ahead of us. And I definitely like to thank Jay Cox for really, trying to get a handle on the bull of AI, and hopefully my bill adds on to that message to hopefully, 2026, you may see 7 AI bills from me. So
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Henson. Questions from the committee? All right, anybody in the audience would like to speak? Come on ahead and do so now. All right, in opposition? Okay, let's see, we do have someone online. Ms. Durkin, go ahead and speak, please.
Hi, Margaret Durkin, again with TechNet. We're a tech trade association. Thank you, Chair Siebold and members of the subcommittee. Like the other bill, TechNet is concerned about House Bill 2554. We're concerned that it is not scope to risk, is overly broad, and is technically infeasible at this time. We also are concerned that the required to terminate isn't tied to actual knowledge, and looking to any future legislation, we would want that actual knowledge standard. Again, like the other bill, we are asking that the subcommittee recommends this bill to Jay Cox. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Durkin. Delegate Henson, I think you're on the right track. This is a good start and something that definitely needs to be discussed. I just think it's still early and, need a lot more, I think we need a lot more conversation around the topic. So with that, Delegate Clark, would you like to motion? Oh, I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. Go ahead, Delegate Henson.
Try not to give me the last
I'm
word
sorry.
for my funeral.
I'm so sorry.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully, the motion, I know what's going to happen, but hopefully the Uber chair, whoever he may be, will send a letter to the commission that he might be on to help study this. And that is my recommendation. And how much can a wood chuck? Thank you.
All right, Delegate Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to be here for this homegoing ceremony. But wanted to make a motion to gently lay this on the table with a recommendation to send a letter to Jay Cox.
Second. Okay. The motion has been made to gently lay it on the table and with a letter to be sent to Jay Cox by our magnificent Chairman Hayes at the end of the row. Let's go ahead, and it's been seconded, so let's go ahead and open the roll. All right. Close the roll, please. 6-1. The bill is tabled with a letter to JCOTS.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Henson. We're going to have to go at ease for a minute or so until the next patron arrives. If you don't mind, coming on up when you are settled.
Good morning, and thank you for your patience as we wrapped up the Ag Committee. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I have House Bill 2541 in front of you, and I do have a substitute that we've been working on to tighten up our language.
Move the substitute.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you to Council for sharing. After we received some so let me just start with the purpose of the bill and then the substitute. I think that would help provide some context. This bill helps bring our code, the part that is what we refer to as the Virginia Information Technology Access Act, up to speed. This act was put in place in the 90s and really focuses on our digital accessibility. And so, back when we had floppy disks and desktop computers, the focus around accessibility was really on visual accessibility. And with the, prevalence of using computers and other technologies in our daily lives, we know that technology really intersects with a whole host of other disabilities as well, and we want to make sure that our code is reflective of that, of addressing accessibility across all the different disabilities. And so at the same time, and so this is my 4th year working on this issue, and at the same time, last spring, the federal government released updated Title II, regulations for Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Last year's efforts led us into the government procurement work group, which was pretty rigorous. And so the recommendations from that work group came out so that we would better align our code with the federal regulations around 508 and around the Title II, the new Title II regs. So what the substitute does is I think helps tighten up that language and clarifies the relationship between our code and the regulations. And I think it's really important given some of the movements around protecting, the rights of very vulnerable people at the federal level to make sure that we're embedding the same requirements here at the state level. So I just want to say that for this bill, we are looking at, making sure that that our covered entities include our state government, local governments, our higher education institutions, and then also including our K through 12 institutions, knowing how prevalent technology is used to supplement and augment learning in classrooms as well. One part that is different and one part that we believe is super important is requiring a vendor-paid and provided vendor accessibility roadmap so that when our covered entities are purchasing technology, if there are areas of non-compliance, then the vendor is able to provide that, and that that you're working together to get your technology into compliance. That is an industry kind of standard to produce, and it's on them to produce, and it's something that they're really used to doing as well. Also, importantly, that we are asking each covered entity to that they may designate a digital accessibility coordinator if they'd like, and delineating what those responsibilities are, but it doesn't require it. It does, however, require all covered entities to publish on their website, how someone can be reporting barriers to digital accessibility, and we think that's important to continue to improve the accessibility we have. So much of our government services, our educational opportunities and learnings are offered through technology. We want to make sure that all of our constituents are able to access. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Delegate Tran. Questions from the committee? Delegate Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask the patron about, make a comment in how this impacts this bill. I just had the blind organization come and visit me, and one of the things they use the convert the text to speech, but what they couldn't convert were the links embedded in the text. And I don't know if this would cover that, but it's something that we might think about in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Martinez. Would you like to respond, Delegate Tran?
Madam Chair, and I appreciate that we've been working with the Federation for the Blind for these 4 years. I think we are now joined at the hip and besties on this issue. But honestly, I think the goal is I think you point out kind of the issue that so many of our constituents face. And so the goal is to make sure that we're following the federal guidelines on how to be most accessible to our constituents.
Thank you, Delegate McNamara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, if I may, of the patron.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's really no discussion of the fiscal impact, which I would, I think it's pretty broadly written. I think it can be interpreted in a number of different ways, and I don't know if there had been any discussion with the bill development of what kind of impact it might have for local governments and the state as far as that goes.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I think you did get a fist for this. We have been trying really hard to work, or at least we got one yesterday. We have been trying really hard to work with our localities and with the state entities around what the cost would be. But my answer, I think, to the delegate, Madam Chair, would be this is a federal requirement. So states have to be in line to be accessible by 2027. By April 24th of 2026, depending on their population size. Smaller localities, 50,000 people or less, have to be accessible by April 26, 2027. And so, and then this, so regardless of kind of how we take the steps we take at the state level, this is a federal mandate in order to make all of our, our resources, public-facing resources, accessible. So I think that so there's that delayed enactment in terms of getting up to speed, and one of the enactment clauses is having the state government work to help prioritize where we move forward. Most of things are kind of moving in the right direction already, and if there are kind of more broadly, kind of like the power of purchasing in across, our governments working together, will also help bring down costs.
Thank you, Delegate Tran. And We did find the fiscal impact, which is posted online for anybody who would like to check it out. Delegate McNamara, did you have another question?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, let's go ahead and if there's no questions from the subcommittee, let's go ahead to the audience. Go ahead, come forward if you want to speak in support of HB 2541. We have, let's set the clock, let's set the clock, Madam Clerk, for a minute each, please.
Okay. My name is Bonnie O'Day, and I'm with the National Federation of the Blind. We obviously support the bill. We've been working for 4 years to get this passed. It's very important. We have instances of local governments and school districts not in compliance with the current law that's 25 years old. People have had to pull their kids out of Fairfax County schools, for example, and homeschool them. There has also been litigation against one county, which was successful in favor of the parent who had difficulty with their child having access to information. So we really support this bill. We have had about 50 people who've been meeting with delegates and senators yesterday and the day before. We care about this bill. That's why we're here. We are not a paid lobbyist. It's difficult to get here, and we're here because we care about it. We've been working on this for 4 years, and it is time. We've made lots of compromises, and it is time to pass the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Ashley Wright, representing both the ARC of Virginia and also Eggleston Services, an ESO based in Norfolk. We're very thankful to Delegate Tran for her tireless work on this. It has definitely been a labor, but we are in full support of this. When we talk about inclusive communities, that really does start with accessibility, both in our prioritization and then also in our planning and our building long term. And that goes all the way from, as she mentioned, education components in the classrooms, but also when you're looking at employment services in our increasingly digital world, services in general, and also just general community. People need to be able to access that information. So we fully support the bill, and we ask that you do as well. Thank you.
A labor of love.
Good morning. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I'm Terry Morgan with the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities. I would like to thank Delegate Tran for her perseverance and hard work with a number of constituents, bringing together a variety of different opinions and thoughts to bring a bill this year that's going to have a positive impact on people with disabilities, that's going to modernize a really outdated Information Technology Access Act, and is going to be a really positive outcome for people with disabilities trying to access basic services, information, education across the board. So we think it's an important bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Okay, anybody in the audience would like to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, let's go ahead and move to online testimony. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you standing. Come on up, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Josette Bolivar with the Virginia Municipal League. I just want to be clear, we don't oppose, but we have some serious concerns about the bill. We are supportive of the underlying concept of aligning federal standards and Virginia regulations. We do think that's very important. We are also supportive of the report that came out of the procurement work group. However, we have concerns on the additional requirements that this bill does add. Our smaller localities in particular, and most of our localities in general, will have a difficult time with the current federal timeline as it stands already. So making these additional requirements are a little more burdensome. We are worried about the cost, compliance, and the timeline required. And we have concerns around the additional resources that may be needed. So with that, we wanted to express our concerns and thank the patron for speaking with us and working with us. And the Virginia Association of Counties has the same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on forward, please.
Good
morning, Madam Chair. Jennifer Vaney, Fairfax County. Again, we're not standing in opposition, but have an official position of amend. Again, we thank the patron for her tireless work on this, and it's a priority that Fairfax County takes very seriously. We actually already meet the new rule for 2026 for web and mobile accessibility. And I've been working for several years to try to meet the AAA rating at the federal level. However, some of the requirements in here that go beyond federal law are still not within our grasp as a large county. And so we have concerns about smaller localities and other organizations being able to meet those on a 2026 timeline. And so we support the effort. And again, we are working very hard to do this, but within the timeline of the expanding these rules outside of just mobile and web accessibility, which is what the federal rule is, we have a lot of concerns about being able to do that.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. J.T. Kessler on behalf of the Virginia School Boards Association. Delegate Trent, thank you for always listening to our concerns and working with us, but we share the same concerns from our friends from local government, and that's where we stand today.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience? Okay, let's move to online. I see we have Ms. Biedenell, if you want to go ahead and speak. We have a minute for each speaker.
Good morning. Thank you. Lucy Beednell with the ARC of Northern Virginia and on the board of the ARC of Virginia, echoing some of the comments from Ashley Wright and Delegate Tran. We strongly support this. I work daily with self-advocates, and the younger they are, the more tech savvy they are, far outpacing me. This next generation is coming like a freight train and is absolutely expecting and demanding that their world be more accessible. We are hopeful about this chance to bring Virginia into the present times. There's no question growth and change are hard, but we also know these sorts of things don't happen and evolve without the necessary push and prod in the right direction. So we're thankful to the federal government regulations and the General Assembly for considering this.
Thank you. And we have Ms. Miller online from the Disability Law Center.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We join the voices that you've heard from the disability community in expressing our support for this bill, and really want to state our gratitude to Delegate Tran for being such a steadfast, committed advocate for this cause. Thank you.
Okay, so we're headed back to our committee now. Is there any questions, thoughts? Delegate Keys-Gamarra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for one of the participants who testified for the school board. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask the testifier, what is the proper word, by the way? I'm not quite sure. Witness. If there is concern by the school board with respect to meeting these requirements in order to provide accessibility, has the school boards you've worked with developed a plan to try to meet this, and what their concern would be, or if you can express their concern for children being able to access education without such accessibility?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Delegate, that's a great question. What I would tell you is that we would feel that if there's a student that's having accessibility issues, it's already being addressed in their IEP and 504 plan. So we're concerned about the costs of, outside of that in the accessibility range that we would have to comply with.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Having had some experience with IEP teams and their ability to meet needs and simply state that they can't meet needs, have you had any interaction where there may be some gaps there not addressed by IEPs?
Not, Madam Chair and Delegate, I'm just expressing, we address these in the IEP process, 504 process, and there are limited resources. All we ask is that if we're going to do things like this, that we fund it and provide us with the money to implement these changes.
Go ahead.
Has anyone of that you're aware of put forth a request for such monies and for the implementation?
Madam Chair, Delegate, we constantly advocate for fully funding our education system in the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Delegate Hughes-Gamarro. Anybody else from the committee?
Madam Chair, can I have a last word?
Yes, please do.
So this bill originated when I had a constituent come to me with the National Federation for the Blind because her son had low vision, and Fairfax County uses, at least in her school, the schools that my kids go to, a mathematics, like a application, right, to augment the learning. What we're asking for is, having captions, having where the color is brightly juxtaposed, right? So it's not like all pale and it's hard to see. Where if there's so those are some examples, or if like or like having it where you can press the button and you can hear somebody read the words on the screen. So, for example, those are the types of accessible tools accessibility that we're looking for. And her son was unable to use this math application, and so the teacher had to create a whole different lesson plan for him. And he felt a lot of social isolation and being different because all the other kids were using it, to the point where her son pulled her child out of school. And so what we're asking for is, when you're looking at various math applications, is you pick the one that is the most accessible. And many of these technology companies are moving in that direction because of the need that they see amongst their users more broadly. So I just wanted to add that we have put in the substitute today because we have tried really hard to address the clarifications that our local governments are seeking, so that they are able to move forward with the implementation. And, this bill is in your hands, but regardless, the federal requirements are coming, and I think that we need to make sure that our code is up to speed. Otherwise, we're like 25 years behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Tran, and I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. I know I said I was giving the last word, but I just wanted to give you a couple of my thoughts as well. My husband, who is severely dyslexic, grew up at a time when they didn't have this type of technology, and he always talks about how he would have benefited so much from the technology that exists today, because both my kids, because it is genetic, ended up with dyslexia as well. And the technology that they have at their fingertips is incredible, and it's actually low cost compared to what he was able to access back in the 70s and 80s. In fact, he actually ended up being sent to a boarding school up in upstate New York because the public schools weren't even able to accommodate his needs at the time. And so, yes, there's obviously going to be a fiscal impact, but the amount of money that we need nowadays to accommodate the needs of our students is vastly different from what existed just 30, 40 years ago. And so, to me, it's money well spent, because we're able to accommodate so many other disabilities that we were not able to do years ago. And I just thank you for bringing this bill, and I know it's going to help the lives of so many folks if we're able to pass it. So with that being said, the committee works on motion, operates on motion. Does anybody have a motion for this bill?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll move that we report and refer HB 2541 as substituted to appropriations.
Second.
Great. Okay, so the bill has been referred and has been reported and referred to appropriations. Let's go ahead. It's recommended to go to appropriations. Okay. Chairman Hayes,
yes.
would you mind?
So we,
guidance?
as a subcommittee, are simply making the recommendations to the full committee. So the motion is to recommend that we report and refer this to appropriations.
Okay. All right. So the motion is to report and refer to appropriations. The motion is to report and refer the substitute to appropriations.
Second.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a vote. All right. Thank you very much. Let's close the roll. The bill reports and refers the sub to appropriations 8-0. Thank you very much, Delegate Tran.
Thank you.
And with that, we are
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We've been motioned and seconded. We are done with our work today in the Subcommittee for Technology Innovation. Thank you all very much.